What's going on YouTube? It's Deej back again with another video, and today I bring you the finale of my updated 3-round mock draft. And like I said in Friday's video, we're now into April, man. It's draft season. I hope you guys are excited for today's video, and hopefully you all enjoy. Be sure to hit that like button if you do. Subscribe if you're new as well, looking for more draft coverage. We're going to be live round 1 of the NFL draft, and I have my fingers crossed, hopefully live for day 2 as well. And of course, as we go through today's video, be sure to leave your thoughts down below in the comments section. Want to hear who your favorite team is and what picks you love, which picks you hate, which ones you're maybe a little indifferent on, and then let me hear why you feel that way about that selection. And of course, also I want to showcase the best players still available on the board right now. And hey, is there someone here on that list that you're like, dude, TJ, why is he still available? I'd love to hear who went too high, who went too low in your books throughout this mock draft. But with all that down, let's go ahead and jump into it. A whole lot of picks to cover in today's video. We start with the Chicago Bears taking Karl Brooks. Might catch some people off surprise, a little by surprise here. I think Karl Brooks could be that 3-tech. And like I've been saying, I kind of hope Philadelphia takes him in the 3rd round, and now I have Chicago having to be that 3-tech that is so paramount in that Matt Eberflus defense. It feels like this guy who's going to be a really sneaky ad. Like everyone's focusing on Jalen Carter and Kalijah Cansey and Brian Brzee. I think Karl Brooks, I mean, this guy who played edge at Bowling Green and played at a high level, he's going to play more on the inside. So 4-3 defense like Eberflus, he's going to play that D tackle spot. 3-4 base, you're talking about 3-4 D end. Doubt he's going to play nose. So 3-4 D end or 4-3 D tackle. And I think he could be a really, really interesting fit in that defense. Need to bolster that unit. We took Ojulari yesterday. Now we add Karl Brooks to be that 3-tech that is so, again, pivotal to Eberflus's defense. Starting to round out that defensive line in Chicago. Next, I'm going to have Houston take Luke Weipler. So I've been saying over and over again, I think these top 3 centers, Weipler, John Michael Schmitz, and Tippmann, are all gone before pick 60. I'm breaking my own rule here, but nevertheless, I don't think it's too egregious, not a huge reach, and I'm not too far off. Weipler, really good movement skills, one of the best graded centers in college football over the last few years per PFF. And you look at Houston's offensive line, and it's like the glaring spot that O-line still needs an upgrade at. So Weipler to me was an easy selection since he got out of the 2nd round. Next, the Arizona Cardinals at 66. Similar thing here with Emmanuel Forbes. Look, 166-pound corners are not going to be for everybody. And to me, not really for me. So he is always a tough player for me to mock. But here in the 3rd round, I start to give it the okay. And push comes to shove, he just becomes a solid nickel corner, which is kind of what Byron Murphy was used for. He did play some on the outside as well. But at worst, you're replacing one primary slot guy with another in Emmanuel Forbes. But 6'1", that again baffles me how 6'1" translates to 166 pounds. Like, my man's to eat you a peanut butter and jelly sandwich or something. Easy for me to say, though. I'm not in the NFL. But guy who has a ton of ball production. Now, I do want to add a caveat to that. Like, go look up his interceptions. He's got a handful, a couple lucky picks in there. Now, where you can't lie, ball production is PBUs, pass breakups, and he's got a ton of them. And there is no luck there. You either get a PBU or it's a catch. It's one or the other. Or I guess it could be a drop, but you either make the play or you don't. So PBUs, there ain't no skipping that. Like picks, you can get fortuitous hops and bounces and some tip drill type of stuff, which I think he was aided by. But I do think he has good ball skills, solid arm length, 6'1", good frame, just a little light. But for Arizona, you need cornerback talent. You'll take it wherever you can get it. Next up, Denver Broncos at 67. Going to do similar things than what I've done, starting with Eli Ricks here. So I've been trying to find that 2nd corner. I know some people are fine with Demaryi Mathis, and that's fine. That's cool. I just think you can do a little bit better there. And also, you're looking for a nickel guy, so maybe Mathis slides inside, or maybe Ricks becomes that guy. But Ricks is a really interesting player because doesn't have prototypical size, maybe doesn't have the most insane athletic profile, doesn't run like 4.2. But man, when he plays, he's a really special player, and he's so good in man press, which typically you're like, oh, Christian Gonzalez, Joey Porter Jr., 6'2", you got 34-inch arms, you can run in the 4.4s. Ricks isn't really any of those things, But he just plays really, really sound. He's an explosive athlete, and I will give him that. That back pedal is what prevents him from getting beat over the top. So technically sound, press corner. Would love to see, Denver add a guy like that opposite of Pat Surtain. And, Vance Joseph coming back has been a guy who's leaned a lot on man coverage in years past. Ricks could be a really interesting fit. And then here at 68, just want to change it up a little bit. I'll give him Diane Henley, a guy who easily could go somewhere day 2, as high as somewhere in the back 30s or something like that. Shoot, maybe he goes round 1. But I know they brought back Alex Singleton. They have Josie Jewell, but those two guys have battled injuries, and I'm not really too sure either one of them are great. They're solid, they're serviceable, and I like Jewell for the most part when he's healthy. But I think they can also find an upgrade there just by taking a swing of the bat here in the 3rd round. And Diane Henley, great coverage ability, played 6 years of college football, 5 at Nevada, then 1 at Washington State. So you're talking about a guy who's ready to contribute at the NFL level right away. He'll turn 24 in December, which isn't for everybody, but I feel like in the third round, it becomes easier to validate that type of selection and say, hey, this guy's going to help us win games right away. And maybe he starts out as a special teamer, but then if Jewell goes down with an injury, I think that's really where his comparison is. He's more of a Jewell than he is a Singleton. But if Singleton goes down, that becomes a really interesting coverage duo there in the middle, Jewell as well as Henley. All right, next up, Los Angeles Rams at pick 69. They're going to take Garrett Williams. Really interesting upside corner here. Kind of looks like a man press specialist while playing in a zone-heavy defense at Syracuse. Hopefully those two worlds collide together and he becomes this, shut down number one corner. The Rams don't really have right now after trading Jalen Ramsey. So obviously a position of need. They can certainly get better there. And Williams, prototypical size, good athlete. We were kind of waiting for him to break out this season. We were all kind of on Garrett Williams breakout watch. Gets hurt against Notre Dame, so we don't really know what the back half of the season was going to hold for Garrett Williams. So a little bit of a TBD, but man, if it hits, it's going to hit big, and it's going to give the Rams a big bolster to that secondary. And I think here at 69, it's, well, forget the pun, but nice value. The Raiders then at pick 70. I'm going to stick in the cornerback room here, have a little bit of a run on these guys here. DJ Turner, 4.26 speed into a secondary that desperately needs some reinforcements. Patrick Graham just needs some guys that can hold their own. And, Turner, I think because of his athletic ability, but also having some solid size, can be this corner that meshes into that Patrick Graham defense, which typically he's mixing it up pretty evenly between man and zone, but not even just man and zone, like man, cover 3, cover 4, cover 1, all that sort of stuff. Cover 1 being, man coverage, but you get my point. He mixes it up a ton. And because of that, I think with Turner's college experience, but also very good athletic profile, it makes it a little easier to see that fit. And I don't really know if DJ Turner profiles is any, just like this guy plays man. This guy's a zone specialist. I actually think he kind of has that flexibility and that versatility to be able to be like, hey, this play I can run cover 3, and then we're gonna go cover 0 the next play, and we're gonna send some pressure, and I'm gonna be fine. I know my assignment. I think he could bring that. But really, it's drafting a guy with solid height and 4.26 speed. That's why this guy's going to the top 70. Then we get to the Saints at 71. Same pick as last week, so I really do apologize for double dipping here, but I'm gonna go with Parker Washington, man. You had a legitimate slot wide receiver. I like Rashid Shaheed. I'm interested by seeing what he could do maybe in a bigger role, but let's just go ahead and get a guarantee. Like let's find that Jarvis Landry replacement, and Parker Washington definitely could be that. I actually think is more athletic, certainly at this point of Jarvis Landry's career than I think Washington's more athletic than Landry, certainly at this point in his career. Good route runner, solid juice, some sneaky contested catch ability, and he just gets to play that third fiddle. You got Michael Thomas back, Chris Olave going into year 2, and then Washington becomes this extra wide receiver that you have to deal with. Man, that pass game gets really, really scary. Plus, we've seen the chemistry between Derek Carr, Hunter Renfrow. Maybe that was, a Renfrow-Carr thing, or maybe it's Carr and his slot wide receiver. So I think finding an upgrade there in Parker Washington could become a very, very big addition. Next up, pick 72. I'm going to go Zach Harrison. So as promised, we went offense heavy for the Lions through the first 2 picks, but we've gone all defense ever since. And I'm adding Harrison here, and I don't hate James Houston. Obviously, great story last year. This guy kind of came out of nowhere and became, I don't want to say a household name, but became a really fun story and a big part of that pass rush component in Detroit. And of course, you have Aiden Hutchinson, who he took number 2 overall in 2021. Or 2022, I beg your pardon. But adding Zach Harrison in the mix just gives you a little bit more flexibility to use Houston as a DPR, which I know he was a nice story last year, but 6'1" and 248 doesn't always play. And that's the same thing I've been saying about B.J. Ojolari, 6'2", 248. This guy probably needs to bulk up and add some strength. And actually, I think Houston actually might be listed at 240. So to me, he is a passing down specialist. So let's add Zach Harrison, who brings a little bit more beef, 6'5.5", 275 pounds, like a perfect ideal build. Is a good athlete. Will have good, 40 speed, he's straight line, fast. Doesn't have much in the way of bend, though. That's kind of the weakness. But Aiden Hutchinson brings that. So power rusher Zach Harrison, opposite of Aiden Hutchinson, who I think can do just about everything as a pass rusher. And then you work James Houston in those passing downs. And this defensive line gets really, really scary. And keep in mind, we already added Gervon Dexter yesterday. So we were just juicing up that defensive front in Detroit. All right, next up is the Houston Texans. I'm going to give them to Marvin Overshown. Again, apologies for a same pick as last week, but dude, look, Marvin Overshown has already taken strides in the right direction. He's 6'3", 230 pounds, safety converted to play linebacker. And the big issue, really, to me, was his tackling. And he really cleaned that up last year at Texas. Yes, he needs to get better at filling run lanes and playing the run as a true linebacker. And, I think he has good coverage feel, but always room to grow, right? I think you put him in a defense that's led by D'Amico Ryans, former, rookie of the year for the Houston Texans at linebacker. That feels like a perfect match made in heaven and the perfect spot for Overshown to become the best version of himself. So even going back to the way too early rankings, I was super high on Overshown. He was my way too early linebacker 5, and he's still my off-ball linebacker 5. I just love the potential that's there. He's got size. He's got, solid weight compared to a lot of linebackers in this class. Again, there is a high level of coverage feel there, harkening back to his safety background, and he's already made so much progress as a tackler. That signals to me that this guy has a good work ethic, and I don't get to interview him, so I'm just basing off previous growth, right? But if he's already cleaned up the tackling, I feel like there's even more room for him to grow as a man coverage guy, as a blitzer maybe, but mainly as someone who fills run lanes and becomes a bigger impact player in that area. Next, Cleveland Browns at 74. And again, same pick as last week. I do apologize, but Jordan Battle is kind of my Grant Delpit insurance, who hasn't really played all that well in his career, which hurts me because I loved me some Grant Delpit coming out of LSU. So this is like your Delpit insurance / third safety in the mix, because I like the Juan Thornhill signing. I think it's a really fun fit in that Jim Schwartz defense. Schwartz taking over as a new DC in Cleveland. Him plus Delpit could be enough, but teams are using 3 safety sets more and more frequently. So adding a guy like Battle just adds a high IQ football player who is always in the right place at the right time. And you cannot put a price on that. Not the most gaudy athlete. Yes, the frame isn't like super special. He's not 6'3", 200 like an Antonio Johnson. He's more middle of the road height, solid weight, just kind of your standard NFL player, or standard NFL safety for that matter. But again, right place, right time, instinctual in coverage, good tackler, just a sure, steady football player. And, Delpit's been up and down, battled injuries. I think it's nice to have that insurance, but also I think there's a world where you can work all 3 of those guys on the field at the same time. All right, now let's talk about the Atlanta Falcons. I'm going to go Marvin Mims here. I'm a big Marvin Mims guy, and I'm going to do a My Guys video, and Marvin Mims might end up being my wide receiver. I'm going to probably have 3 names on each position group, and Quentin Johnston, I've been pounding the table all cycle, basically saying he's wide receiver 1. And Michael Wilson is a guy that I've really, really fallen in love, especially after getting to see him at the Senior Bowl. And there's few big body guys, but Marvin Mims feels like so underrated in this year's class. Like, I feel like nobody's talking to him, and it's a year dominated by these speedy, smaller, lighter, maybe slot-only guys. I think Mims can play on the outside. I legitimately do think he can do that. Did it in college. 4.38 speed's fantastic, but, the Josh Downs, the Zay Flowers potentially could be in that mix. Jordan Addison's a little light. Jalen Hyatt's like 6 foot, but he's also a slimmer 6 foot. Like, this year of all these light wide receivers, I feel like Marvin Mims is being overlooked. So he might end up being my guy at wide receiver. He feels very underrated, but adding that 4.38 speed to an offense that has Matt Collins, that has Kyle Pitts, that has Drake London, that speed feels like the one thing that's missing. So same thing I've said about when Mims, I've mocked him to the Chargers, and the same thing I said about Zay Flowers when I mocked him to the Chargers on Friday, and have done multiple times in this draft cycle. There are teams missing speed, and the Falcons are one of those teams. Mims could be the answer to that potential issue. All right, here at 76, I'm going to give the Patriots a safety. So we went corner in the first round, so you might be like, are they going back to the secondary, and we're ignoring wide receiver? Let's just say in this mock draft multiverse that DeAndre Hopkins has mended his relationship with Bill O'Brien, and there you go. New England, you got your clear-cut number 1 guy. You're probably not going to have your second-round pick then, but let's just play with some fun here. And Chris Smith could definitely be that Devin McCourty over-the-top free safety replacement. Heck, that's exactly what he did for Georgia the last 2 years. The best defense in college football history in 2021, and then one of the best defenses in college football history in 2022. So, yeah, Chris Smith plays with a good coverage feel, good over-the-top speed, solid tackler, can play downhill if needed. So, to me, he becomes a logical Devin McCourty replacement in New England. Next, Los Angeles Rams at 77. Another pick that I love, and it does sound like Andrew Voorhees might be back by fall. So, we could be talking about him maybe missing the first quarter of the season and then be ready to go. And the Rams desperately need interior offensive line. So, yesterday's video I said, it feels like they're kind of reworking that defense, right? Like, move on from Wagner, they trade Ramsey, they let Floyd go, Rapp's going elsewhere. That being said, interior offensive line is as big a need as they have on this roster. So drafting a guard like Voorhees, who played 5 years at USC, gets to stay there in the state of California, which is fun, but he's NFL ready. And if not for the injury at the Combine, I think he's off the board before this. So I think the Rams are getting some sneaky value. Yeah, he may miss some time this year, but who knows? I mean, guys come back from these ACL injuries faster, and sometimes some guys come back slower. So really the timeline is TBD, but if he comes back and gives them an upgrade at left guard, that's paramount for that offense. And we've already gone defense heavy in the previous picks. All right, now we're on to the Green Bay Packers. And, I kind of want to give them a do-over of the Amari Rodgers pick. And Jaden Reed kind of feels like the Amari Rodgers pick all over again. We're taking him here in the 3rd round, right around that same spot. And I do think this team needs to add a slot wide receiver. And this is also just kind of a perfect segue into potentially having a conversation about this. Because next week, I know Brian Gutekunst does not draft pass catchers in the 1st round, but with Rodgers moving on, could he have enough spite in his body to want to do it this year? Could he take Jackson Smith and Jigba at 15 if he's there? So if you're a Packers fan, do you think it would happen? And then secondly, would you want it to happen? Because to me, I'm like absolutely here for it. Give me this volume slot guy with Watson and Dobbs, then relegated to wide receiver 2 and 3 roles. That makes that offense awesome to me. And it gives Jordan Love a great environment to step into as a first-year starter. But instead, we went tight end yesterday, and now we're going to give him Jaden Reed. And again, this feels like Amari Rodgers kind of all over again. Solid route runner, nothing special. Solid Senior Bowl for Reed. Good athlete, not crazy, but good. Sure-handed, and can attack all 3 levels of the field. Short, intermediate, and deep down the field. So can kind of play, in this case, really 4th fiddle behind Kincaid, Watson, and Dobbs. So 4 weapons there for Love to work with. That's what I'm focusing on. And look at our lads. Yeah, the Packers need a slot wide receiver. So that takes us into the Colts here at pick 79. I'm going to go ahead and draft him a starting interior offensive lineman in Jarrett Patterson. Hey, they already got 1 Notre Dame Fighting Irishman on the offensive line. Let's go ahead and draft him another here. Guard center flexibility, but in this case, he's your Will Fries upgrade at right guard. And yeah, you have the 2 Notre Dame guys playing on the inside at left guard and then right guard. And you're just trying to keep a strength to strength. That's been as big a calling card the Colts have had over the last decade as any other team there on the offensive line. Like them in Dallas, like what immediately came to mind was their offensive line. And part of that is Zach Martin and Quentin Nelson. Go Irish. I'm a Notre Dame fan. Almost wore my Notre Dame shirt, actually. But nevertheless, this is your Will Fries upgrade. And I believe in Bernard Ryman going into year 2. I think he showed some good stuff down the stretch last year. And Braden Smith's a solid player. So it was kind of interesting to see that offensive tackle was one of the positions of needs here on Mock Draft Database, the simulator I use. So a little curious by that because I think they have good tackles. Could they get better? Maybe. And could they get cheaper than Smith? Yeah, maybe. But I think Will Fries is the place to get an upgrade. I think Jared Patterson gives you that. Nothing gaudy athletically, nothing special frame-wise, but multi-year starter at Notre Dame, ready to go, plug-and-play starter. All right, so next up is the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Pittsburgh actually just signed yet another, kind of box safety type. Plus, they already had brought back Devontae Casey, so maybe this isn't a pick any longer. But J.L. Skinner, to me, would be a awesome Terrell Edmonds replacement. Box safety written all over him. Actually, pretty good coverage ability and a solid tackler for this, 6'4", again, box safety. There were even some talks about him maybe moving to linebacker, which, I'd just rather see him stick at safety. But again, solid coverage feel. Coming from a smaller school than at Boise State, so it's not the same of seeing this guy at Alabama, but the frame, a lot to be excited about. Solid athlete, and maybe not the best Senior Bowl. That kind of dampened his stock, so maybe he becomes a day 3 guy. But I want to talk safety here because Pittsburgh obviously losing Edmonds. But that being said, I know they've been active in free agency, so maybe Skinner isn't really an option here at 80, and maybe they go elsewhere. So if you're a Steelers fan, like myself, let me know what you would do here, pick 80 with what's available on the board at this present moment. So then next up is the Detroit Lions, and I think this team can still stand to try to find an upgrade at linebacker. So Dorian Williams becomes an interesting player. Yeah, lighter, smaller, but an awesome coverage specialist. So you have Malcolm Rodriguez, who's also small, light, and kind of a coverage specialist. Bring back Alex Anzalone. So there might be some overlap here, but it's more about the point of trying to attack linebacker one more time. And really, this is kind of a light and smaller linebacker room. So maybe Papo could be an option here. Maybe To'o, but and I'm not really a big Noah Sewell guy, so maybe he becomes an option and you pair him up with Panay, but at that point, just do it in the 4th or 5th round, because I'm not crazy about Sewell, but let's go ahead and let's add Dorian Williams in the mix here. They could still add another linebacker, and man, you get into a passing situation and you have Malcolm Rodriguez and Dorian Williams cover the middle of the field. You're going to cover a ton of ground. Those guys are fantastic in coverage, great rangy athletes, and it becomes a really tough middle of the field to try to pass against. So makes you have a light box, but in passing situations, it could ultimately work out. So more about the idea of adding a linebacker, and I kind of ran out of options here because there's nothing but really light linebackers this year for this 2023 draft class. Anyways, Tampa Bay then at 82. Well, hey, they lost their nickel corner. Let's draft a guy that to me is going to pretty much only be a nickel corner. I'd love to see Clark Phillips prove me wrong and play on the outside, but sub 30-inch arms, that's a tough threshold to not be able to meet. So to me, I'm thinking Clark Phillips is going to be slot only, but Sean Murphy-Bunting going to Tennessee. The hole is open there in Tampa. They can definitely use an upgrade. And you can play Antoine Winfield Jr. there, but you could also keep him at free and strong safety, move him around in those areas, and maybe even put him up in the slot every so often too to give him that opportunity and just keep opposing offenses on their toes. That's what you want to be doing. So I think Clark Phillips gives you that guy that can be a very solid Sean Murphy bunting replacement and one of the best players on one of the best defenses in college football last year. So feels like something that Todd Bowles is going to like. Then here at 83, let's give Seattle Devon Achane. I think I did this last week. If I did, I do apologize. I'm doubling down again. It's kind of been kind of a theme here in the third round video, which I hate. I hate doing that, but it's just how the board has kind of played out this week. Devon Achane, though, that speed, home run ability, as like the running mate with Kenneth Walker, who's ground and pound, 4 yards and a pound of dust, that type, but he can also break off big gains. I'm not trying to simplify Kenneth Walker. He's a stud. Like, he was one of the best running backs, maybe RB1 for you last year, and he was right up there with in that conversation for me last year. So adding Achane, that breakaway speed element to Kenneth Walker and the power that he runs with becomes a really, really fun 1-2 punch. Plus, Walker not much in the way of receiver, and I think you get a little bit more of that pass production from Devon Achane. All right, here at 84, I'm going to give Miami Blake Freeland. I'm basically kind of carved out, I think, what would be the most ideal second and third round picks for Miami. You get, a tight end like Darnell Washington, which is about as close as Mike McDaniels is going to find to a a George Kittle type, because of his blocking and his movement skills, and then some untapped potential there as receiver, but I don't think he's going to be Kittle in that realm any stretch. And then Blake Freeland, who I had them taking the second round last week. So Freeland to me is going to go somewhere day 2. I've seen him go as high as, the 50s, and I've seen him go as low as somewhere in the low 80s, into the 90s. So a tough range and a tough player to try to gauge, but 6'8", and just over 300 pounds with fantastic movement skills. A perfect fit for this wide zone blocking scheme. You plug him in at right tackle. Again, perfect fit. You fix that last missing spot on the offensive line, but also Teron Armstead's going to miss some time, so you may need to flip him over to left tackle. So tackle is definitely going to be a pick that I think Miami's trying to address here in the NFL draft. All right, next up is the Los Angeles Chargers. Let's give him Byron Young. I think this team could use one more pass rusher just in the case, just in the event that Joey Bosa gets hurt, Khalil Mack gets hurt, something like that. You have someone who's competent, reliable, and can step up and be that starter. Thought about Tuli Tuipulotu here, but I decided to go with the more twitched up athlete, 6'2", 250, runs that 4.43 at the 40, has like a 98th percentile broad jump. So I don't necessarily always see that explosiveness on tape, but it's there. And maybe it's some false steps that are kind of mitigating what should be an awesome strength for him. But, go back to 2021, was a little bit better of a run defender than he was in 2022, but I still think that can be a part of his game. But really, you're drafting this guy because he's a high-end athlete, and you want to have him sit behind Bosa, Mack, learn from two of the best of the biz still, even despite, Bosa's injury history and Mack's, age at this point. But have him be that third fiddle and a DPR. Once you get into passing situations, maybe you can slide Bosa inside, and then have all three of those guys in the field at the same time. And I think if the Chargers find that third pass rusher, they become a really, really scary defense to face. Could go Tuli Tuipulotu, but I decided to go Byron Young here. Really, it was down to a coin toss for me. Baltimore Ravens here at 86. We didn't go wide receiver in the first round, so I'm going to give them Michael Wilson. A little bit slower, 4'5", 840, but 6'2", 215 pounds, and a wide receiver class that is very light on guys like that. So I really like Michael Wilson as a fit here. Just work the middle of the field, be a safe option. Hopefully Lamar Jackson's there again. Every day that goes by, I get more and more uncertain that he's actually going to be a Raven next year. I'm getting really uncomfortable, which I'm also kind of excited because I'm a Steelers fan again. So get him out of the division. I already got to deal with Deshaun Watson and Joe Burrow. Get Lamar somewhere else. Anyways, back on track here. If it is Lamar, adding one more pass catcher in the mix is paramount, right? Like Rashad Bateman, I liked him a ton coming out of Minnesota, but to this point, hasn't really lived up to my expectations. Mark Andrews is a fantastic tight end, one of the best of the biz, but he can't do it by himself. So you got to get Michael Wilson in there, another possession threat, can attack and work the middle of the field where Lamar Jackson is most comfortable throwing the ball. So then that takes us to the Minnesota Vikings at 87, and I'm going to give him Darius Rush. Feels like a guy that Brian Flores is going to like. Long arms, has some man coverage upside here. Looked good at the Senior Bowl, man coverage, but just through the entire week practice and the game for that matter. A little bit overlooked because Cam Smith exists, but otherwise I think he's a really, really solid football player and maybe a little overlooked this year. Good athlete, good frame, long arms. Yeah, again, I think this guy's got man coverage potential written all over him. I think that's something Brian Flores is looking to add because depending on how you feel about a Caleb Evans, Tim, Andrew Booth Jr., and then I like Byron Murphy, but maybe he only plays on the inside. Maybe they are expecting him to move outside. Either way you spin it, I think they could still use one more corner there in the mix in Minnesota. Then we get to Jacksonville at pick 88. And, I'm going to cave in here and give him a tight end, right? Evan Ingram's back on the franchise tag, so let me try to make the case here. That's just a one-year deal. And, hey, if he balls out, maybe they can work out something long-term. But also, if he balls out, then the price tag's only going up, right? So I could see him being back in Jacksonville for one more season, play it out, take advantage of the production while you can have it on a relatively cheap contract and a relatively cheap price point. And then Tucker Kraft comes in as this gaudy athlete coming from a small school, so might need some refinement there, but really twitched up athlete and could be a logical Evan Ingram replacement. But also Doug Peterson's background at Philadelphia, ton of 2 tight end sets, so I would love to see that Trevor Lawrence offense with Kraft and Evan Ingram out there. That becomes a really explosive and potent and a mismatch-driven offense, which is really, really fun. And for the Jags, that offense gets that much better. Then next up at pick 89, the New York Giants. I'm going to go ahead and give them a wide receiver here. I'm going to give them Rashee Rice. I made this pick. I made Cedric Tillman be the pick to the Giants a handful of times. They have a bunch of smaller, lighter guys. Darius Slayton, Sterling Shepard, Isaiah Hodgins, those sorts. Hodgins has a little bit more bulk to him, but and Paris Campbell, smaller, lighter guy. So I'd like to see them get a little bit more beef, and Rashee Rice definitely has that. The problem with Rice, though, and I like him. I think he had a good Senior Bowl. I felt like I was more optimistic about his Senior Bowl than most. But he feels like he's Velcroed to contact and physicality. Like, he will beat guys up the line and then want to, like, extend the arm. You can't really see because I'm going out of the picture, but he wants to extend his arm and keep that contact there. Like, he wants to keep the defender in his hip pocket. And it's like, no. You beat him, leave him in the dust, man. Like, go. Good athlete, nothing crazy there. This guy is a physical possession catch and traffic specialist, and that feels like something the Giants don't have. It's kind of what Kenny Golladay was supposed to be, and I do think there was some vertical, contested catch, deep ball potential there in Rice, but I'm really focusing on him being the possession, the axe, that intermediate 10 to 20 yard threat that the Giants don't really have right now. So hopefully he can learn once at the NFL level. Once you beat a guy, just leave him. Don't need to like Velcro him back into the play and keep him on your hip pocket, even though you're really, really good at it. Once you beat him, leave him in the dust. Next up, let's talk about the Dallas Cowboys at pick 90. And here is where I'm going to give him a running back. Tank Bigsby, like I said, considered still going Jahmyr Gibbs at 26 just because it feels like, yeah, maybe. Even if Bijan's gone, they might still opt to go running back, get another shiny toy for that offense. But it's a good running back class, so therefore I feel like you can wait. Tank Bigsby, really awesome combination of speed and power, but also a sneaky one-cut in there. Him and Sean Tucker both are speed power backs, but I think where they're separated is Bigsby a little bit more one-cut potential, and pairing him up with Tony Pollard, who's a little bit more of that elusive receiving back guy. That becomes a really nice committee and a really nice 1-2 punch. Maybe then you can extend Pollard and keep this as your tandem in the backfield. But Bigsby getting ahead of steam behind that offensive line, which on paper looks really, really good, and continues to be a strength in Dallas. Maybe not what it was like 10 years ago and 8 years ago and stuff like that, but it's still one of the bigger strengths of that offense. So Bigsby behind that offensive line, he'll hit top speed, and that speed becomes power. And look out defenses. That takes us to the Bills then at 91. I'm going to give an offensive tackle here. This is your Spencer Brown insurance. And also Matt Bergeron at 91. Sign me up for that value all day. This is like a solid B+, offensive tackle across the board. Solid strength profile. Good run blocker too, which I think the Bills are going to have to start to incorporate that more into their offense. Josh Allen's making pretty pennies now. So anything you can do to take hits away from him and put him on the body of James Cook and the other running backs, that's a good thing. So I think adding Matt Bergeron, he got him even profiles a little bit better as a right tackle because of that, power aspect of his game and being a little bit better of a run blocker than pass blocker. We're just talking generalities here now, but he could opt into that right tackle spot, and push comes to shove, him versus Spencer Brown. It's camp battle. If Bergeron makes Brown better, he's worth the pick. If Bergeron beats out Brown, he's worth the pick. So yeah, really no ways of going wrong here if Bergeron falls to the Bills' lap at 91. Next is the Seattle Seahawks, and I'm going to give them a linebacker. I know they signed Bobby Swags, and so they got him and Jordan Brooks back, which is great. But Bobby Wagner's on a 1-year contract, which is kind of the perfect time for Owen Pappo to refine and get the development I think he needs. He is coming off the best year of his career at Auburn, which is certainly nice, and maybe you could flip him and Dorian Williams. Maybe that's the picks I should have flipped. Give Pappo to the Lions, and then Williams falls here to Seattle. Either way you spin it, linebacker to sit behind Brooks and Bobby Wagner, specifically Wagner, who's been one of the best linebackers of my lifetime. Sit and learn the game from those guys who already have, I'm saying that these linebackers in this class, so many of them are really good athletes, but they're lighter and they're smaller, so they're having to learn how to do other things. Learning from Bobby Wagner is about as good a guy you can learn from, right? So whether it's Dorian Williams or it's Owen Pappo runs that 4.39 40, can hit hard, can be a thumper, and solid coverage feel. Not great, but I think that the instincts are there, and working with Bobby Wagner would certainly be a great pairing for him to learn from. So yeah, I think this is not out of the realm of possibility for Seattle. Draft and stash a guy, let him sit behind Brooks and Wagner, and plus Wagner's old, so like no guarantee he even plays the full season either too. So that's another component in play here. But really, I'm making this pick with the thought in mind that this guy is not going to play year one. Instead, learn and sit behind Brooks and then Wagner, and then after the 1 year of having Bobby Wagner, he probably retires. I would assume retires, and then Papo in this case becomes your future starter with Jordan Brooks. All right, long tangent aside, let's talk about the Carolina Panthers. I'm going to give them an outside wide receiver here and Cedric Tillman at 93. I just think they could add a little bit of size. Like Terrence Marshall, solid size, 6'2", 6'3". Laviska Shenault, 6'1" if memory serves, but kind of a gadget guy. And I think Thielen's only going to play on the slot, so I'm focusing on Shenault and Terrence Marshall Jr. because I think they're going to be the candidates to maybe play outside. I think Thielen should be slot only because he feels like he's lost a step, and I think he can kind of regain that by working in the slot. But Cedric Tillman, I mean, you want to talk about playing on the outside at Tennessee, like outside wide receivers literally play basically on the sideline. So he's really good at that. And I mean, comfortable playing outside the hashes, good and very skilled at working the sideline in those tough contested catch spots. And obviously getting both feet down, which is key. And the one limitation, maybe, Josh Heupel asked these guys to run such a limited route tree. Maybe that deters teams. Maybe that's why, Tillman falls a little bit. But here, get a big body possession type to that offense that they don't really have that guy right now. Maybe Marshall can develop into that. But it wasn't really what he was asked to do at LSU. So I'd love to see that type of receiver added in the mix in Carolina. And we haven't given them a wideout yet, so it felt like it was a position I've neglected thus far. Next, Philadelphia Eagles. I'm going to go ahead and give them a running back here. Sean Tucker, already talked about speed, power, and you want to talk about that speed, power behind an offensive line like the one in Philadelphia. That guy's going to have he's going to have a mean head start, and it's going to be like 3 or 4 yards before defenders get their hands on him. And at that point, good luck bringing down a bulldozer. Sean Tucker's also a great follow on Twitter. I'm really excited. Hopefully he continues that, the way he would tweet post Syracuse games. Hopefully he does that at the NFL level. Look, I know they added Rashad Penny, but also a shorter term contract. Kenneth Gainwell, I think he's got 1 year left on his rookie deal, maybe 2. But this is a team that's always like to have 2, 3, 4 guys in the committee that can contribute. And Sean Tucker here in the 3rd round, I think is really solid value and gives you that 3rd fiddle behind Penny and Gainwell. All right, Minnesota Vikings. They got this in the trade back from the Kansas City Chiefs. And I'm going to give an interior defensive lineman here, and Moro Jomo. I've been saying for years now that the Packers need to do better than Dean Lowry. So then when I got on our lads and I see Dean Lowry has signed with Minnesota Vikings, I was like, well, got to stick with it now. I've already made this a talking point. You got to do better than Dean Lowry. Yeah, I'm sorry, not that good. And he's a little old, and yeah, I'm just not really that wowed by him. Moro Jomo, 6'3", 292 pounds. You're getting a really solid run defender right away. And he's got some good juice. He's a solid athlete. And like a pass rush win rate at like 18% at Texas. Very productive. Now, I know, Big 12 defenders, like we fall for this trick all the time. I think Ojomo is a little different. And plus, it doesn't feel like you fall for Big 12 interior defensive line guys. You feel like you fall for the edge, maybe linebackers, maybe some corners or whatever. Like Justin Gilbert. I was just talking to a friend about Justin Gilbert the other day, and I was like, man, that's a name I never thought I'd get back. But there it was. Oak State. Shout out to him. But nevertheless, Moro Jomo, I think you're getting a little bit more of an NFL-ready guy, and it's solid size. Dean Lowry replacement here, written all over him. Immediate run defense upgrade, which the Vikings definitely could use. At points last year, that was a big weakness. But also, I think you're getting that pass rush juice. So you bring in Davenport, and you're still trying to find some more answers there. Hopefully they keep Danielle Hunter. I think adding Ojomo to the mix and having him be that 3rd pass rusher in the works makes that pass rush and that defensive line in general a lot scarier. Then we get to Arizona at 96. I'm going to give them Emil Ekiyor. This is a team that needs to rebuild the trenches. I've been saying that basically this whole mock and basically the last month. This is like a 2-year retool. So you draft a starter here in Ekiyor. This would flip Will Hernandez over to left guard, but I don't think that's out of the realm of comfort for Hernandez. I think he's more than capable of doing that. Or maybe Ekiyor can make the flip. Either way you spin it, one of these 2 guys is going to play left guard and the other is going to play right. And right now, again, go to our lads, look at center and left guard for Arizona. Yeah, they're looking for an upgrade there. Ekiyor at 96 is really, really solid value. Washington then up at 97. They could add a linebacker. I'm not really in love with it, but I also don't love what else is on the board here. So let's just say they draft a guy with 4 years worth of college football experience at Tennessee and Alabama, and Henry To'o. I mean, not the biggest guy, not the fastest, not the gaudiest athlete, but just a sound football player, feels run lanes, and I feel like I say this all the time here at 97. He feels like a linebacker that, because he's overcoming other limitations as an athlete and from his size, that Jack Del Rio and Ron Rivera are going to look at this guy and be like, former linebackers, by the way, they're going to be like, wow, this guy just gets the position. He just understands. Like, he knows what it takes. So he's got the intangibles. He doesn't have the other stuff, but he's got the making. He knows, he's got the heart of a linebacker, whatever cliche you want to insert here. The intangibles. You can't teach this stuff. Yeah, so I could totally see him being like a Del Rio and a Rivera guy. Add one more name in the mix, and maybe it's him and Barton battling it out for that other starting linebacker spot next to Jamin Davis. I wouldn't rule that out whatsoever. All right, next up, Cleveland Browns, and I'm kind of surprised he fell this far. But Tuli Tuipulotu, and I really don't have anything against Tuipulotu. He's really solid at getting off blocks. Could be a little bit better at finishing plays, but we haven't seen him test, so I think that might be part of it. I don't have any like combine numbers, so he's not like fresh in my mind. So therefore, he kind of slips out of my mind, and therefore falls down these boards. Tuipulotu probably goes round 2, maybe early round 3. So here at 98 is supreme value. I know the Browns signed Ogbo Okoronkwo, but yeah, young guy that has shown flashes of it in small roles in LA, and then we start to see a glimpse of it the back half of last year in Houston. So no real certainty that that's the answer. So Tuipulotu plus Okoronkwo, that could be your tandem on the other side of Myles Garrett. And if they're both good, get creative. Get all three of them on the field. Garrett, Okoronkwo, and Tuipulotu. And also Okoronkwo, Tuipulotu would form maybe the most frustrating broadcaster last name duo of a rotation of all time. So that would be I guess funny. I guess that'd be cool. I don't know. But anyways, let's talk about the San Francisco 49ers at 99. I'm going to give them Jalen Duncan. Someone just fell into their lap. A guy who has the frame of a first-round tackle, has the athletic traits of a first-round tackle, just hasn't played like it yet. But if there's a scheme and an offense that can get it out of him, it's Kyle Shanahan and his wide zone blocking scheme. So plug-and-play replacement here for Mike McGlinchey. And, him versus Wanya Morris, I like Duncan maybe a smidge better, but they both present solid frame and good movement skills, so they both make sense for that wide zone blocking scheme in San Francisco. Pick 100, I'm going to give the Raiders an interior offensive lineman of their own, Nick Broker. Let's have him play left guard. We'll move Dylan Parham either to center or right guard. Let's just say right guard, and then Jermaine Illuminor kicks out to play right tackle. We'll give Andre James another year at center. That's kind of my thinking in mind here with Broker. Solid size. Already moved inside to play guard this past season at Ole Miss. Previously was playing left tackle. So if you get in a pinch, maybe he could be a swing tackle of sorts. But enough size, enough strength, and enough movement skills. He just like kind of passes all those bars, really. And I think, can be a competent left guard. And Parham, with his flexibility, moves over to the right guard. And all of a sudden, that Raiders offensive line feels like it's coming together. All right, 2 more picks for San Francisco. One I make all the time, so I'll be quick with it. Travius Hodges-Tomlinson. This is like redrafting Jason Verrett, 5'8". Yeah, he had some penalty issues, but I think he's a scrappy guy, and I think that can be coached away at the NFL level. And a really good man zone. I think he's got some good flexibility there. And I'd be interested to see how much they use him in a blitz game, because again, he's got to get that dog, he's got that tenacity about him. I'd be interested to see what else they do besides just using him as a nickel corner. But that being said, Jimmy Ward signed in Houston, nickel corner starting role up for grabs. I think Hodges-Tomlinson can easily slide in there. And then I'm going to go Jalen Jones. I think this is the same corner tandem I gave the San Francisco 49ers last week, and it'll probably be one that I continue to do. Jalen Jones just makes all the sense in the world to be a starting, cover 3 based corner. And I think you're going to still see a lot of that with Steve Wilkes coming in. And it's been, kind of the bread and butter for Saleh and then, D'Amico Ryans. And I think it's going to continue to be the bread and butter for San Francisco's defense. So yeah, Jalen Jones, solid size, solid athleticism. I only gave up 10 receptions this last year at A&M. So he's a little untested, which makes me a little concerned maybe. But here at 102, minimal risk and potential big time upside. Get him in a battle with Ambry Thomas and let those two fight it out for the other outside starting corner spot opposite of Charvarius Ward, and whoever wins that battle hopefully made the other one better, or whoever loses that battle made the other one better, then that secondary gets better. Then we get Chicago. Final pick we're going to talk about. I'm going to go Olusegun Oluwatimi. I said I wasn't going to add guards, so I'm kind of talking out of both sides of my mouth here, but Cody Whitehair, I think towards the end of his contract, this might actually be the last year of his contract. If not, then he has 2 years left, and it's a very cuttable contract in not this season, but in going into the 2024 season's time. So totally could be something that they end up doing and opting to go in that route. But want to just go ahead and add one more interior offensive lineman and throw that thought out there. Maybe Whitehair could be a starter for a year because we drafted Paris Johnson Jr. at 9. But then if you draft Oluwatimi, you give yourself some flexibility in 2 years' time, or really just another offseason worth of time passed that you could move on from Whitehair, save money, use that money elsewhere. But all that tangent aside, to buy me some time to showcase all 3 rounds one more time. Love to hear your thoughts down below in the comment section. Who's your favorite team? And what'd you think of the 3-round haul I gave your squad? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you like some picks, not some others? But let me hear your rationale no matter how you feel. Love it, hate it, or somewhere there in between. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I read every comment, so trust me, you are not wasting time dropping your thoughts down below in the comments section. But hopefully you all enjoyed today's video. If you did, be sure to hit that like button. It seriously would help me and the channel out a ton. Be sure to come back as we're going live for the first round of the NFL draft and hopefully for round 2. And hopefully that's a good incentive for you to hit that big red subscribe button. And if you liked what you saw today, plenty more content like this coming your way. So be sure to subscribe if you enjoyed today's video. But that is going to do it for me. Hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day. And until next time, my name is Teach, and I am signing off.